UFC's White House card was just announced, and for what we were promised, this is a massive letdown. And I'm gonna explain why this had every opportunity to bring the UFC back to prominence, to stake their claim once again as the combat sports outlet across boxing, MMA, and everything in between. And they fumbled it. Not because they had to, not because there was no other way to do it, but because the UFC is in a place right now where
I am released from the UFC. Those 5 words from Jon Jones sent a shockwave through the entire combat sports world, turning a historic night into a total PR disaster. While fans were expecting the greatest of all time to headline the massive White House card, Dana White pulled the rug out from under everyone with a cold public execution of Jones' career. It was not just a disagreement over money or opponents. It was a scorched earth move that left the heavyweight champion questioning everything he had built over a decade of dominance. The tension between the face of the company and the boss just hit a point of no return, and the fallout is uglier than anyone could have possibly imagined.
Is there any update on when or if he'll fight again?
No, but we are definitely talking to Conor.
Dana White did not just leave Jon out of the loop. He went on record to tell the world that the Jon Jones era is officially over. He looked the media in the eyes and confirmed that Jones is retired, citing chronic hip issues and arthritis as the final nails in the coffin. But here's where it gets messy. While Dana was telling the public it was fair to say Jon is done, Jones was reportedly sitting at home in disbelief. The boss claimed any talk of Jones fighting on the White House card was complete nonsense, even going as far as texting Jon's lawyer to say a deal would never happen, ever. This was not a mutual parting of ways. It felt like a forced exit designed to bury a legend.
You want me to engage in secondary sales? They don't usually put me on UFC 200 or 300 or the Sphere. They usually put me on UFC 201 or 301. You know, like a double sale thing. That's the White House was going to hit no matter what. Who the fuck gives a fuck who we put on it? And then wheel McGregor out for the second one. So we double our economic take. We can't decide what these men do, you know, and I don't want to. They, you know, I don't doubt them. It's like in this current climate, we're all cattle. Yeah, all these fighters, we're all cattle. I just happen to be free range. I'm like Wagyu walking around the fucking farm.
Lying in bed and staring at the ceiling, Jon Jones admitted the perception of his career ending like this was deeply painful. He described the situation as a gut punch, struggling to wrap his head around how the UFC could pivot so aggressively against him. Half of him wanted to fight back, while the other half was left reeling from the betrayal of a promotion he carried on his back for years. It is one thing to lose a fight, but it is another thing entirely to be told by your boss that you are physically broken and irrelevant to the company's future plans. The hurt in his words was palpable, signaling a rift that might never be repaired as the champion felt his legacy slipping away.
2 days ago, I got a call and they said, "You're definitely not fighting on the White House card." So I was like, "Ooh."
Wow, really?
Cool.
Okay.
And then yesterday, I got a call and they said, "You might hear something. You might be on the White House card." And I was like, "How are you going to go complete 180 turn on me?" And then today, I found out that I was on it. I didn't know if I was main event.
Really? Oh, so it was a big secret. Even the fighters really didn't know.
But the plot thickened when Ariel Helwani dropped a massive truth bomb that contradicted Dana White's entire narrative. According to top-tier reporting, the UFC was absolutely in negotiations with Jon Jones for that historic White House event. They were not just talking. They were deep in the weeds trying to close a deal that would have changed the landscape of the sport. Why would Dana lie and say the talks were bullshit when they were actually happening? The theory is simple. When you cannot close a deal with your biggest star for your biggest show, you bury the evidence so you do not look like you failed. Jones knew the truth, and he was not going to let the lie stand.
And the White House card, there's a lot of reporting out of Spain today saying that it was going to be Ilia Topuria and Islam Makhachev, and that fight fell apart on Friday. Well, Justin Gaethje also said, like, he was told Thursday he wasn't on the card, and then on Friday he was.
That is true.
What happened with Islam, I guess, because you know how fans are, a lot of them.
That's not true, I said.
Sure. So
it was never Islam versus Topuria, yeah.
So anyone who thinks Islam ducked this fight or anything like that, it's all incorrect.
Don't worry about what fights are being made. We announced which ones are made and which ones will be happening. I told you there were some weird circumstances. The reason that fight fell out, and it wasn't up on stage with Mick Hunter and Sean, it was that power slap that the fight fell apart that night. That's how Gaethje ended up on the card. And Topuria wasn't originally supposed to be on the card either. So he got the call too.
When can we expect to see Islam Makhachev back?
I don't know. He's got some hand issues. I know that. I don't know how serious the hand issues are or how long that will keep him out, but yeah, he's injured.
Jones fired back with a chilling ultimatum, stating that if he was expected to publicly agree that the negotiations were a lie, there was going to be a serious problem. He refused to be the fall guy for the UFC's inability to deliver on their promises to the fans. Imagine the level of frustration required for the baddest man on the planet to feel like he is being framed as the villain in his own retirement story. He questioned if proving Dana wrong would somehow make him the bad guy, highlighting a toxic dynamic where the truth is sacrificed for the sake of the UFC's brand image. This was a chess match where Jon refused to be a pawn, even if it meant risking his entire career.
I'm fighting GSP at the White House. I just kidding, I tricked you guys. I'm fighting aim is a hobby. I told UFC, I would love to fight at the White House. I will fight anybody at the White House. I will fight Ilya. I will fight Islam. I will fight Habib. No, but for real, I said, I want to fight on the White House card. Please let me fight on the White House card. I don't care who it is. I want to be on there. I want the opportunity to, I fought at the Sphere, which is really cool. The White House, I think there's 6 fights on the White House card. There's me plus 11 other people that get to make the walk from the Oval Office. That's what they're saying. You walk from the Oval Office into the White House lawn. Crazy how secret this card has been. I knew about this literally only like a week ago. I don't know who the main event is. The fight's gonna be outside. Our family's gonna be able to come. Like they're saying how many millions of dollars they're spending on security alone. We're gonna go out there and beat the fuck out of this guy. I go out there and win this fight, I'm next in line for a title. I actually wanted to fight. I really was like, yo, let me fight Peter at the White House. They didn't say that. They said, nah, man. I was like, all right.
The backdrop for this drama was the highly anticipated White House card, an event that was supposed to be the UFC's crowning achievement. Instead, the announcement felt like a massive fumble that left fans and pros alike feeling cheated. Critics compared the buildup to expecting a gourmet meal and receiving a lukewarm cardboard pizza from a budget chain. Without names like McGregor, Jones, or Makhachev, the iconic lineup looked more like a standard Apex show than a historic milestone. The disappointment was so loud that Dana had to go on the defensive, using Jon's retirement as a convenient distraction from the fact that the card lacked the real star power it needed to survive.
Ilya versus Gaethje is a good fight, but no chance to Gaethje. Ilya has a better boxing, and I think he's gonna knock him out. They just waste time, waste my time. They gotta put me versus Ilya, and I'll take his belt, and easy money for me.
Even the heavyweights currently in the mix were left scratching their heads at the chaos. Tom Aspinall, the man many see as the rightful successor to the throne, reacted with genuine shock when he saw the final lineup. He openly wondered where Jon Jones had gone, expecting the champion to be the centerpiece of such a massive political and sporting crossover. Aspinall noted that while there were decent fights, the unfinished business and the lack of the biggest names made the whole thing feel incomplete. When even the fighters on the active roster are asking, where is Jon? You know the promotion has a major transparency problem on its hands that no amount of PR spin can fix.
Dana and the entire UFC and the teases that have come from being this, insane, massive card, putting it together, how it was going to blow everything out of the water, it was going to be badass and all this. The hype around this has been ridiculous. And it's given you a sense of like, oh man, something big is coming. Something, along the lines of a UFC 100, 200, 300, or like when, again, Conor McGregor Habib was announced. Conor McGregor came back to the Donald Cerrone fight was announced. When Jorge Masvidal fought Nate Diaz for the BMF, when George St. Pierre came back at UFC 217, it had that kind of feel to it. And I think that's the biggest problem I have right now, was the hype did not match the delivery. This is like ordering Domino's pizza and somehow Little Caesars is delivered. You don't know how it got there. It's definitely not what you asked for. It's clearly not what you were promised, but it's pizza, so you'll eat it. This is kind of how I feel.
Dana's specific focus on Jon's health felt like a strategic move to devalue him in the open market. By claiming Jones has debilitating arthritis in his hips and feet, Dana essentially told every future opponent and promoter that Jon is damaged goods. It is a classic tactic used to lower a fighter's leverage during contract disputes, but doing it to a legend like Jones felt particularly cruel. If Jon is truly as healthy as he claims, then Dana's comments were not just a health update. They were a character assassination designed to justify why the UFC is moving on to younger, cheaper talent. It was a move to ensure that if Jones ever left, he would leave with a broken reputation.
However, Dana White explained why Jon Jones wasn't on the UFC White House card, pointing to his hip issues, retirement status, and other factors that made the matchup impossible, stressing that any talks or interest didn't change the outcome.
With Jones out of the picture, the UFC pivoted to Alex Pereira, taking on Cyril Gane, a matchup that many believe Jones would have dominated. MMA legends like Israel Adesanya chimed in, noting that while Gane has incredible movement, Pereira's scary power is the X factor. However, the shadow of Jon Jones loomed large over this announcement. Fans could not help but remember how effortlessly Jones dismantled Gane in his heavyweight debut, something even Tom Aspinall could not do as quickly. By removing Jones from the equation, the UFC created a championship vacuum that feels more like a consolation prize than a true coronation for the next generation of heavyweights.
Meanwhile, Dana White confirms negotiations with Conor McGregor are ongoing, but adds that they are far from having a timeline for his return.
Is there any?
Jon Jones is not the only superstar feeling the sting of the UFC's new business model. Conor McGregor broke his silence, claiming the promotion intentionally keeps him off the mega cards like UFC 300 or the White House event. Why? Because the UFC knows McGregor sells 1 million pay-per-views regardless of the venue. They would rather use him to boost a secondary event and double their revenue for the quarter than waste his star power on a show that is already trending. McGregor described the fighters as cattle on a farm, with him being the only free-range animal trying to navigate a system designed to exploit their labor for maximum profit while keeping their pay capped.
Obviously.
But there's no like timetable, you just, okay.
Not even close.
However, Conor McGregor claims the UFC avoids putting him on major cards like the White House event, saying they know he sells regardless and often uses him to boost revenue on secondary shows.
The revelation that McGregor was initially set to fight Michael Chandler at the White House makes the Jones situation look even more suspicious. Conor revealed that the administration was pushing hard for him to be there, and the story was already built. But at the last second, the UFC pulled the plug, offering him random international fights and changing the terms daily. Much like Jones, McGregor found himself in a state of limbo, waiting for a respectable offer that never seemed to come. It seems the UFC is more interested in controlling their stars' narratives than actually putting on the fights that the world is begging to see, leaving their two biggest icons on the sidelines.
On the other hand, Justin Gaethje reacted to his fight with Ilia Topuria being announced for the White House card, saying he felt proud and excited, calling it an amazing experience.
The level of secrecy surrounding this card was unprecedented, to the point where even the fighters on the bill did not know they were fighting until days before. Justin Gaethje shared a bizarre story about being told point blank that he was not on the card, only to get a call 24 hours later saying he was the co-main event. This kind of seat-of-the-pants matchmaking suggests a promotion in total disarray, scrambling to fill holes left by the stars they pushed away. If the UFC cannot even communicate with their top contenders, how can fans expect them to manage a legend like Jon Jones with any shred of professional respect or long-term vision for the sport?
Gaethje reveals he was first told he wouldn't be fighting at the White House event, only to later learn that he would be on the card.
Sean O'Malley, one of the few stars the UFC actually seems to like, admitted he was practically begging to be on the White House card. He was willing to fight anyone from Topuria to Makhachev just to be part of the historic walk from the Oval Office to the lawn. But even his enthusiasm could not save the event's reputation. O'Malley pointed out that the card needed a pound-for-pound showdown to truly matter, suggesting that Topuria versus Islam was the fight the fans deserved. The fact that the UFC ignored their golden boy's advice shows just how stubborn they have become in their my way or the highway approach, even when it costs them millions in potential revenue.
Sean O'Malley believes Ilia Topuria versus Islam Makhachev should have headlined the White House card, highlighting Topuria's accomplishments and saying it's the matchup fans need to see next.
Rumors swirled that a massive fight between Islam Makhachev and Ilia Topuria collapsed just days before the announcement, but Dana White was quick to shut that down. He blamed a hand injury for Islam's absence, but many insiders are not buying it. There is a growing sense that the UFC is playing a shell game with their champions, moving pieces around to avoid paying the massive purses that a White House card would command. By claiming injury or retirement, the promotion keeps the power in their hands, leaving the fighters to defend their reputations against a wave of ducking accusations from the fans. It is a win-win for the house, but a major loss for the athletes.
However, Dana White says he isn't thrilled with Arman at the moment, hinting that there are multiple reasons behind his frustration beyond what's visible publicly.
What's the question again?
Arman, I know.
Yeah, yeah.
Arman said he spoke to Hunter.
Yeah, got it.
Arman Tsarukyan did not hold back when he called the newly announced Topuria versus Gaethje fight a total waste of time. He argued that the UFC is just stalling, putting on entertaining money fights instead of determining who the actual best fighter in the world is. This sentiment echoes the frustration of Jon Jones, who feels the sport is moving away from its competitive roots and toward a spectacle-driven business model. When the rankings do not matter, and the negotiations are handled with bullshit text and public denials, the integrity of the octagon starts to look like a very thin veil for corporate greed. The fans are noticing, and the backlash is only getting louder.
So that's all we have from today's video, and share your thoughts about the White House card. Are you satisfied with it or not? Let us know in the comments section. Make sure to subscribe to our channel for more amazing videos.
Dana White's response to the criticism was classic. He simply stated he is not thrilled with guys like Arman Tsarukyan right now. He hinted at behind-the-scenes drama that the public does not see, effectively blackballing another top talent for speaking his mind. This hush money culture is exactly what Jon Jones is fighting against. If you do not play ball, if you do not accept the lowball offers, and if you do not let Dana control the story, you become difficult to work with. It is a pattern of behavior that is starting to alienate the very legends who built the company from the ground up, creating a locker room full of resentment and unspoken tension that is bound to explode. Ariel Helwani tried to be the voice of reason, giving the card a 9 out of 10 based on a realistic look at the roster. But even he had to admit that the huge whiff was the absence of Jones versus Pereira. That was the super fight that could have saved the UFC's year, and yet it slipped through their fingers. The realistic view is that the UFC's management is currently unable to close the mega deals that define an era. They are settling for good enough, while their biggest stars are either retired by press release or left to vent their frustrations on social media in the middle of the night. The gap between what the UFC is and what it claims to be is widening every day. Conor McGregor's theory about the double economic taste reveals the cold math behind the Jon Jones firing. The UFC does not need to put the best fights on the biggest cards because they have a monopoly on the market. They would rather put a B-tier main event on the White House card and save Jones or McGregor for a later date to ensure 2 profitable pay-per-views instead of 1 massive one. It is a brilliant business move, but it is a slap in the face to the fighters who want to compete on the grandest stages. Jones is not just fighting Dana, he is fighting an algorithm that says he is more valuable as a future asset than a current legend who deserves his respect. Jon Jones' fear of being the fall guy is rooted in the UFC's long history of blaming fighters when cards underperform. If the White House event does not do the numbers they expected, Dana can easily point to Jon's hip issues or unreasonable demands as the reason why. It creates a shield for the promotion, allowing them to avoid accountability for a lackluster lineup. Jones sees the writing on the wall and is refusing to be the scapegoat for a management team that could not get the job done. He is calling out the perception before it becomes the permanent history of his career, fighting for his right to be seen as a willing warrior rather than a broken down liability. Fighter advocates are calling for a return to the golden age of the UFC, citing the days of McGregor versus Diaz or GSP's return as the standard. The White House card was marketed as a return to that level of greatness, but the delivery fell flat. The hype did not match the reality, and the insane massive card we were promised turned out to be a masterclass in over-promising and under-delivering. By cutting Jon Jones out of the equation, the UFC did not just lose a fight, they lost the big fight feel that makes MMA the most exciting sport on the planet. Without the stakes of a true legacy fight, the event feels like just another night at the office for the promotion. Reports suggest the UFC is spending millions of dollars on security for the White House lawn, yet they could not find the budget to satisfy their greatest champion. It is a bizarre irony. The promotion is willing to invest in the theater of the event, the security, the location, the political optics, but they are cutting corners on the actual actors in the cage. For a guy like Jon Jones, who has given his blood and sweat to this company, seeing millions spent on perimeter checks while he is told he is retired via text message has to be the ultimate insult. It shows where the UFC's priorities really lie, and it is not with the athletes who put their lives on the line. So, where does this leave the greatest of all time? If Dana White is to be believed, Jon Jones is a retired fighter with bad hips who will never step foot in the octagon again. But if you listen to Jon, he is a man who was pushed out of a historic historic opportunity and lied to by the people he trusted. The release might not be official on paper yet, but the emotional and professional bridge has been burned to the ground. Whether he finds a new home in another promotion or simply walks away into the sunset, the way the UFC handled this firing will go down as one of the darkest chapters in MMA history, leaving a permanent stain on the legacy of the sport. In the end, the drama between Jon Jones and Dana White is about more than just one fight card. It is a battle for the soul of the UFC. We are witnessing a shift where the brand is now bigger than the individual legends who built it, and no one, not even the GOAT, is safe from being replaced. As fans, we have to ask ourselves if we are okay with a sport where the best do not fight the best because of weird circumstances and corporate ego. Jon Jones might be out, but the questions he is raising about fairness, truth, and respect in the fight game will haunt Dana White long after the White House lawn is cleared and the cameras are turned off.